Alright, so we're going to start off with a little housekeeping. We have some error here and it's with our matches, so let's go back into Komodo Edit under All, and the way we're going to find that is if we scroll down, see our traceback. It's going to tell us what it's in. So Profile, Views, All. Profiles, Views, All. And in this case we're just going to do try. So if there's some error with it, it's just going to pass. And we can hit enter, and there we go. So that error goes away because it's going through these objects and matches. So we can also look in there and we can see kind of what's going on, but basically what's happening is there is no exact user yet, as in the user is not logged in. So if we log in, so we log in and we can, let's just take this out of try this time. You're not going to see that error. So let's just keep it at try for now. Cool. So we want to have these suggested jobs being for at least somewhat of good matches. Let's say like 80% or more, or even 75% or more. We can kind of figure out that percentage later, but at least somewhat of a good match. Instead of like in the case for some reason James Bond had like a 30% match, we're not going to see any of his jobs to be suggested jobs. So let's jump into Komodo Edit. And what we're going to do is we're going to add something to this match manager called good match. And we'll do self user 1 and user 2. So what it's going to do is if self.rmatched user 1 user 2 print matched. So if they're matched, then print matched. That's all we need for now. Make sure you go into your views, and under single user, where we have the match, we are going to do match.objects.goodmatch, and then we'll do user 1, user 2. Now the way we did our match manager before, rmatched, it doesn't matter which user it is, they flip-flop. So that doesn't matter what order it's in. So when you have your views here, it doesn't really matter. So user 1 could be request.user, and the other one can be single user. All right. And if it's a good match, it should print out matched. Or if it is a match, excuse me, it's just going to print out match. So let's go back into Chrome, click on someone. Single user, user 2 is not defined. Passed in a bad object there. All right, so nothing happens. Let's go in our terminal. It says matched. Okay, cool. So instead of it saying match, we want to actually have a percentage. So we'll use 75% because it's actually returning in our match. It's returning a percentage. So this is an actual percentage. So if we do greater than or equal to 75.000, we'll do print matched. So that is if it's greater than 75, print matched. And matched. If it's less than 75, it's not going to print anything. Nothing. Of course, you could say else return bad match or not matched. Return would be for something else, not printing in the terminal. So in this case, they're matched. And if you wanted to be really picky about how your match percentage comes through, you could just change that even higher. Otherwise, it's going to say not matched. Okay. So for the case of example, we'll just use 75. cool. So now back into our views. Now, there's a few ways that we could actually take this, and we can adjust the models, which is the way we're going to do, to save if it's a good match or not. So then when we go into all, we can just say whether or not if it's a good match. Then we're going to show their jobs. If it's not a good match, then we will not show their jobs. So, because we will be matched with a lot of users and all that. So we need to change the models. Let's make sure that it's being handled by South already. So match. And it looks like it is. Another way to check is to go into terminal and just cancel it out and then do python manage.py sync database. And as you notice, matches are under not synced, which means that they are used by South. So let's turn server back on, go into our models and our match. Now we're going to say good match equals models.boolean field default equals to true. Just going to default it at true, and otherwise it's going to be false. Like we will set it to be false if necessary. So in our manager, instead of printing it, we want to return true if it's a good match. Otherwise, we want to return false. All right, so now going into our views, we have this new criteria of good match. So set match.good match equals to that. All right, so we need to do a schema migration. So python manage.py schema migration matches auto, and then python manage.py migrate matches. All right, python manage.py run server. So now what it should do is not good math, but good match. Make sure that that's good match as well. So now what it's going to do is every time you go somewhere, it's going to check up against your percentage in here. So if we changed it to 85, because the default we said is true, so let's actually just show you that it does come through with good match. Now if you remember, our match objects, so all of our user matches are called by our model manager. So if we go back in here, it's calling here. So we're actually going to want to do this good match call in here as well. So now that we have these two users here, and the reason I know they're two users is just because ABC and a user, it's getting all the objects that are related to that user, and therefore that will be a user. Then we'll do if match.objects good match, and it doesn't matter the order, abc.to user and user. If it's that, then we will put the matches there. Okay, otherwise it will not. And then with the next one, it'd be from user instead of to user. All right, so let's go back in here, do a quick little refresh. Oh, we have a syntax error. All right, so now it's showing it. So if we change our percentage, 85, does not show it. Back to 75, it shows it. Cool. So that's kind of how that's going to work. It's now iterates through all the users and sees whether or not they're a good match and if they are even matched. Because we still want to actually match them to all users, because we want them to run through this matching algorithm and assign some score to them, regardless of whether or not it's a good match or not. So this model manager checks if it's a good match based off of some arbitrary percentage that we gave it. We could make that a smarter percentage at some point based off of how many users we have and what the average match percentage is and all that. But for now, we'll just throw out a number. This is kind of up to you if you want to make it a little bit more complicated. Of course, if you were wanting to get the average here, it's actually wouldn't be that difficult to do. You would get all the match objects and the percentage that are in there. I'm not going to do it yet, but you would get all the percentages, and then you would divide it by the number of match objects. So here, I'll just show you. With the average, we need to get all of the objects. So we'll do objects, or object equals match.objects.all. And then we're going to have a percentage list. I'll just call it per, and then make it an empty list. So for I in object, I is any iteration, we're going to append, so per.append I.percent. So that's going to make our list of percentages, and that number is coming from there. And it is a decimal place, so it's not a percentage. Let's remember that. And it's going to append all that. So what we want to do is print. I'm just going to give you a Python function. You don't have to know everything about it. You can do more lookups about it, but it's a pretty easy Python function that's just going to grab our data and give us an average. So then we would do per. Oops, you want that there. So what this is doing is it's giving us, we want lambda, not lambda. So this is going through like a for loop, adding everything together of a specific list. So it's assigning it and adding it all, and that would only work in a list with numbers or decimals, not strings or anything like that. So then it divides it by the numbers in it, so it adds them all up and then divides it by that simple average, and then it's going to print that out. So let's go into Chrome, and looks like we might have an error. Still have a syntax error. Let's go back in here, save it, restart the server. Alright, so then we go back. It shows us this 81%, or 0.81, so we need to make it a percentage by doing times 100. And that gives us 81.6. So if we set that as the average percent, the James Bond stuff is actually going to go away. Because they will not be matched anymore, because it's only 80% or so. Let's restart the server. Oops. I want to make sure you set it equal, save it. And now it has no suggested jobs because they are not matched. Now, of course, if you went through other users and they had a higher match, you know, if we subtracted 20 from that that average, it's going to show up. So that's the general average, and that would be a floating number. It would change based on what people answer and how they ask questions and all that. And the only bad side of it is if there's some people that just have a very, very low matches, or if those are a lot of people, then that might kind of mess up our, if they're matched or not, or good matches. Might mess up that whole thing. So I don't know if you'd want to use this per se. I'm going to leave it just because I think it's kind of a cool little useful function for you guys to have. And yeah, so let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.